Okay, so in the last two videos, we did classes and objects. We used the Jest Unit framework to help us discover how all these worked. Now we're kind of done the discovery phase. We've got objects working, we have classes working, we have properties and methods, they're talking to each other, we have a constructor working. Now let's actually begin the test-driven development unit testing part of it. All right, so we're going back to the code. We're going back to the code now. If we remember, we have a person class, we have some code inside of our test script, but we're going to want to get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a brand new I'm going to take this class, and I'm actually going to move this class over to our OOP code. Oops, to our OOP code. Now, if you notice, the way we used to do these before, we used to have all of our functions in a object, and then we used to just say export default. We're now going to change that. We are now going to default export default, but now we're going to put it inside of these mustaches. Do you know what those mustaches are all about? In this particular case, we're going to actually export an object. So now that's going to change the way we actually get this. Okay, so again, we're going to begin our test to see just how well this works. So we know this works already. All we're going to do is try to instantiate one and just make sure we can instantiate it and begin our testing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write a brand new test, which is going to be just basically that. And again, I'm not quite sure how to do this, so we're going to do a little bit of discovery. Well, I'm lying. I do know how to do it, but I'm going to show you how I would discover how to do it. So now our OO funcs would be slightly different. So I'm going to just call it OO stuff because they're not just functions now, they're classes. And again, this name can be anything as long as you're consistent. So what I'm going to do now, this isn't testing classes, this is actually testing the OOP. So it's going to be testing a little bit more than that. And all I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to log what that has in it. Okay, OO stuff. All right, I'm going to save this. And now I'm actually going to run just that test. I don't want to run all the tests anymore. I just want to run that test. So again, dash, 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 T, and I'm just going to go OOP. And what it's going to do is it's going to look for any description that has OOP in it and only run those tests. Okay, you can run many tests that way, but in this case it'll run one. So you can see it skipped that test before and it only passed one test. Okay, and what it's doing is it's showing me, look at this. Oh no, this is from my previous tests. Okay, so here it is right now. So line 18, which is right there, here's what it's printing. OOP functions, and it has the play functions. Okay, well, we're going to go down here. We're only outputted the OOP functions. So in order to run an OOP function now, I'm going to call it from, we deleted that code. Okay, so if I wanted to actually run that function, okay, and the function I'm going to try to run right now, just to make sure everything's working okay, is I'm going to try to run this play function. Okay, it's inside of OOP functions. So now this gets a little tricky because what I have to do is I'm going to, this is what I'm importing, so I'm going to copy this. Okay, oh, sorry, it was right there. Dot, and in this particular case, it now actually used the name that was inside of that module, and then I want to execute play, and I want to see whether that's going to work or now. Okay, I'm going to comment this guy out. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to come down here, and again, I'm only going to execute that Now, I did quite a bit of stuff fairly quickly there. When this works, I like to explain things after it works. When it works, I'll explain what it does, what it's done. Okay, so now, because we're exporting this differently, we're now export default, and I've now got this in the mustaches, which means this is now an object. It's exporting an object and giving it that name, OOP function. So now I need to use that name in the receiving object. And the reason I had to do it that way is because now I also want to export the person class. Okay. Okay, so that's how that works. Then I go over here and it says, hey, go into OO stuff, which is the name that we've imported, OO stuff. Get the OO functions and execute the method play in there. Okay, so inside of OO functions, and then there's play. So the next thing I want to do now is, by using the same concept, I want to go const Larry now is equal to, and this is going to go through all the same things. So OO stuff dot person, and I'm going to call it the constructor, and my constructor is going to be Larry, comma 29. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print what Larry is now, and let's see how that works. So again, we're just building on what we've learned in the last video. All we're doing is sort of stepping on top of that. Okay, and this has failed for some reason, not quite sure why. We'll go there and look at that OOO.person. And what's it saying? Person cannot be evoked without a new. Of course. Because it's a class, I need to put the new on it. Okay. And there we are. We've got it. So notice now in 21, it's actually printing that. That's freaking awesome. Now we can begin our tests. We have things working. Everything's going like it would. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of this. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to just delete it. And I'm going to begin my test. Okay, so now because of discovery, I actually have a little bit more than a stub in here, okay? But because we're pretending, this is the first time we've ever used an object, I have a little bit of code in there. So what I'm going to do now is const Larry equals new that. I'm going to do an expect, okay? I don't have an expect statement there, so I'm going to steal one from a piece of code because I never remember how that works. And there we go, expect. So I'm going to copy it and expect. And now what I'm going to say, I expect Larry.age to be 29. Oops. Dot name to be quote Larry. Okay, and I immediately have a problem here. Does anybody know what it is? Anybody who's been listening to all my stories about TDD? Okay, 29. Okay, what I really should do is go over here, comment these two statements out, because that's already functionality that works. I'm going to save that. The only way I can tell whether my code is being tested is by ensuring my tests fail first. I want my tests to fail. Okay, by going up, I can look at the code, and yes, if I look, is it's complaining because those don't match? That's perfect. Okay, so it's saying right now, if you look right here, the complaint is, it's not going for, okay. The complaint here is Larry.name isn't Larry, it's undefined. So to get that to work, I'm going to uncomment these lines, save it, get it to execute. Perfect. It's going to be perfect. So our test works, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of refactoring here because we got a lot of crap in here. So I'm going to delete this comment, it's lived its usefulness. Okay, that is moved. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go over here. I think everything's okay here. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to make sure it all works. And I think that's enough for one session. So what we've done in this session now is we've taken what we were playing with in the discovery mode, and we moved it into the places where it should be. So everything in OOP test will not be used by the browser. This will not be put into production and would never get used for real. But everything in OOP, if you guys remember the diagram I did from the TDD diagram, this is now making sure that person is doing what we expect it to do. All right, so we're going to stop it here. That's a good segment, and we'll do one more, at least one more, that explains a little bit further what we're going to do.